The perfect atmospheric song in a video game doesn't exist. The Spirit Temple, a crowd favorite amongst Ocarina of Time's fans. It rests deep in the Gerudo Desert, past the haunted wasteland. Contrasting with the previous Shadow Temple, the Spirit Temple is very much a traditional house of worship, quite literally to the Gerudo deity, the goddess of the sand. According to the Zelda Encyclopedia, beyond Gerudo Fortress and past the haunted wasteland are a goddess statue and the Spirit Temple. Because of differences in religion, the people of Hyrule say the Desert Colossus depicts an evil deity. The goddess of the sand is very unique in that she's really the only other deity we hear of in the game, apart from the three goddesses of the Triforce, Din, Nehru, and Furore. However, it should be noted that the Gerudo at least seem to recognize the Hylian goddesses, since within the temple there are three separate places that Link can play Zelda's lullaby while standing on a Triforce, the symbol of the Hylian goddesses. And even at the entrance of the temple, we have a winged sun disk with the Triforce on it. And this tips us off into our first real-world influence on this temple. So, for the final time, let's talk about the architecture and music of this dungeon, discover how it was composed, and what effect it was designed to achieve on the player. As always, if you enjoyed, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. The Spirit Temple is an architectural feat, not just for the Desert Colossus, which the temple resides within, but for the many touchstones of real-world Egyptian and Near Eastern design inside. Now, if this is your first video in the series, I'm going to spend some time talking about the architecture, so if you don't care, I'll put a timestamp in the description so you can skip ahead. But I think the Spirit Temple's architectural design is among the best in the series. Let's start with the aforementioned winged sun disk. It's fairly likely that you've seen this symbol before, as it's literally one of the oldest symbols in recorded human history. The winged sun represents divinity, royalty, and power, which, ding ding ding, Ganondorf of the Gerudo now represents as the physical manifestation of the Triforce of Power. The oldest recorded sighting of the winged sun was found in the Book of the Dead, an ancient funerary text / religious document / literal spellbook in the ancient Egyptian civilization.
No! You must not read from the book!
Most people wealthy enough to afford one of these were usually entombed with one at their side, and it's not a coincidence that we find multiple winged suns in the temple. What is interesting, however, is that while the one on the temple's arch has a Triforce on the sun, there is another sun disk inside the temple that has an eye on it. This is likely a reference to the Egyptian god Horus, who is also known as Horus of Two Eyes, his one eye being the sun and his other eye being the moon, which makes it very fitting to see a singular eye on this sun. And there's also this symbol for the Eye of Horus. So yeah, dude's whole image was based around suns and eyes. But also birds. And in the 3DS remake, they added these bird-like sets of armor to the walls of each of the dungeon's throne rooms. And the chairs the Iron Knuckles sit on have giant suns on the back. Next, let's talk about the two statues of the Goddess of the Sand, the giant monument outside and the smaller but still very large statue inside. The monument on the inside is brilliantly painted, but if the Colossus statue on the outside ever was, it shows no sign of it anymore. In fact, the statue's continued abuse from the desert's natural elements has resulted in a chunk of it falling off. This is likely in reference to the Colossi of Memnon, two statues of the pharaoh Amenhotep III made out of quartzite stone. These statues have been around since 1350 BCE, similarly to the Colossus, which was supposedly built by the ancient Gerudo many years ago. The statue on the inside is much more detailed, likely due to how well it's been preserved. One of the most striking details on the statues is the snake that coils around the goddess's body and adorns her head. This is matched by multiple snake mirrors in the temple, as well as the snake statues at the dungeon's entrance, giving Link the clues he needs to return to the past. Snake worship has a long history in various real-world cultures. But for now, let's focus on Egypt, since they primarily loved worshipping cobras, which is the exact type of snake perched on the goddess's head. Now, in Egyptian culture, snakes were worshipped for their ability to shed their skin, which was seen as a way of being reborn into a new body, very fitting for the Spirit Temple. But they were also indicative of the goddess Wadjet, who was the protector of Lower Egypt and the nurse of the aforementioned god Horus, Also, she was often depicted as having a cobra hanging around her, or even just having a snake head.
Which, like, dang Nintendo, you did your research. I love it.
Also, the Gerudo symbol that replaced the crescent star we talked about in the Fire Temple video is supposed to be the back of a cobra's head with 2 circles on it. And now, with the research I'm done, I'm convinced this is yet another reference to Horus of 2 Eyes. Which, Nintendo, you've done it again! You've made me actually appreciate the new Gerudo symbol. Another thing that's hard to miss in the statue room, and indeed throughout the whole temple, is the Gerudo typography. Now, I'd love to sit here and tell you it looks exactly like hieroglyphics, and it kind of does, but it has much more similarity to Futhark, a medieval runic alphabet used in northern Germany. In fact, according to the translation of Gerudo text provided in the Zelda Encyclopedia, the symbols that are used for Y in our current Latin alphabet match. Hilariously, however, all of the text on the walls in the Spirit Temple mean nothing at all. The leftmost snake in the entrance room actually just lists the alphabet. In fact, the Gerudo text featured across the entire Zelda series has just been a bunch of random letters posted together, until in Breath of the Wild, where various things written in Gerudo text actually started meaning things. One final thing I wanted to comment on before we get to the music analysis is the amazing duality of the temple. First, this is the only temple that one has to visit as both child and adult Link. The 2 paths you have to take almost mirror each other exactly in the map layout, before both paths end up converging in the statue room. Next, the Spirit Medallion itself has the yin and yang on it, an ancient Chinese philosophical symbol representing duality in both light and darkness. And finally, we even have the boss of the temple literally being Twin Rova, 2 magical witches who, yeah, they're twins.
Twins, Basil, twins.
Each representing 2 contrasting forms of magic, with fire and ice. But I think I've talked enough about the temple and what design influences it has. Let's start talking about the music. The Spirit Temple's theme is held in pretty high regard by most players. As soon as you enter the temple, you are hit with the weightiness of the music itself, and the 2 pots that slam right into you. But the song also carries with it a sense of ancient history, which it clearly is trying to invoke. Now, let's break down the 4 parts that make up the Spirit Temple's theme. First, we have the gong. This is pretty straightforward. It's a gong to start the song. It's a powerful beginning to the tune, and it helps lend itself to the weight of the song. Our very first taste of this temple is this big, imposing gong, and the aforementioned 2 pots. Fun fact, many people find it hard to listen to this song without hearing the sound of the pots that fly towards Link. Next we have the duduk. This is where we start getting into some dope as hell instruments that you probably have never heard of. Accompanying the gong at the beginning is what I'm taking to be the Armenian duduk. The duduk is a woodwind instrument made from apricot trees, and although it's indigenous to Armenia, it can be found throughout the Near and Middle East. It's commonly played in pairs, which is fitting because 2 of them are playing in harmony during the song. The duduk is often used for more mournful tunes, but in Armenia it's also played at weddings due to its warm sound. An extra fun fact about the duduk, it was actually the real-world instrument used to make the sound of the Sungi horn in Avatar: The Last Airbender. After this first section, both the gongs and the duduk fade away, and we start to hear a percussion instrument with a slow rhythm. Now, these drums are quiet, and they could honestly be a lot of different percussion instruments we see in the Middle East. However, if I had to place it, I'd say it's the Egyptian darbuka, which is sometimes called the goblet drum for its shape. The darbuka is unique in that it can be used to produce 3 different sounds, 2 of which are used in the Spirit Temple's theme. One by tapping the side of the drum, giving a very short tick sound, and another by striking the face of the drum with an open hand. The darbuka can be used in more slow, melancholic rhythms, and in the hand of a master, it can be absolutely insane. The beat we hear in the Spirit Temple, however, is certainly one of more somber reflection. And rounding out the Spirit Temple's theme, Joining the darbuka in the second half of the song, we are treated to another new instrument. This time, it's another rare Middle Eastern instrument, the dilruba. The dilruba is similar to the sarangi in that it's a bowed instrument. Compared to many instruments, the dilruba is relatively new, only dating back about 300 years. Basically, there's an instrument called the taus, which was created by the 6th Sikh guru, Hargobind, to emulate the sounds made by a peacock. Then his grandson, the 10th Sikh guru, Gobind Singh, said, "That instrument is rad, but I can't play it while riding on horseback." So he made a smaller version called the dilruba. It wasn't super well known in the West until the Beatles started using it in their songs like Within You, Without You, but pretty much everyone agrees the Sikh guru Gobind Singh was pretty sick. The dilruba melody gives off a haunting sound that is somehow both exotic and relaxing, nostalgic and unknown. The long, held notes with quick fluctuations in pitch make the song comfortable before catching the player off guard. This instrumentation makes up the majority of the song, and it's extremely interesting and hypnotic. After a period of time, the duduk returns to the song with the dilruba taking the back seat before taking the lead again. The song reflects the harshness of the desert and the deep history that the spirit temple is rooted in, much like a beautiful soul living within a withered body. While the Colossus statue at the front might be weathered from the winds in the desert, the inside is still preserved immaculately. And the old history of this temple is fitting, as it's the only one Link has to visit as both his younger and older self.
And there you have it. I finished my music analysis series on the Ocarina of Time's temples. This series has been a lot of fun, and originally was just going to be a one-off video of me gushing about how much I love the Forest Temple. So a very sincere thanks to everyone who has enjoyed it and encouraged me to keep going. That being said, what would you like to see me accomplish next? I could keep doing the temples from Majora's Mask, or perhaps do a video on all of the known samples Koji Kondo has used during the entire series. Let me know what you'd like to see in the comments down below, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one of those two options. Also, if you've enjoyed this series, maybe check out some of our other stuff, such as our other video essays on gaming history, our weekly live shows including our weekly gaming news show, or our new weekly Dungeons & Dragons show called Tales from Runeterra. And if nothing else, maybe head over to our Discord, where we've managed to cultivate a community of pretty cool people who are actually chill when it comes to talking about video games. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a wonderful day.